Good morning and welcome to the new Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. God, quantum physics, mechanics rather, and consciousness. Absolutely three different entities. God, supposedly to be creator, sustainer of the world, a master craftsman, the ultimate creator. Quantum mechanics, the fundamental theory in physics, and consciousness, awareness, both outside and inside the human beings. Is there any connecting link? And this question has been engaging the philosophers, the Homo sapiens, the savants of society for a long time. There are a number of similarities, but at the same time there are a number of incomprehensible, incoherent contradictions in the three. And apparently when we talk of that, we find that possibly there is no connectivity. And yet there is. Now about God I need not say anything because all of you believe, or most of you, unlike me, I don't believe. I'm an agnostic. So that God is there, all prevailing, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, and so on and so forth. Quantum mechanics is a fundamental theory in physics that provides a description of the physical properties of nature. Now that's the most important thing. Description of the physical properties at the scale of atom and subatomic particles is the foundation of all quantum physics, including quantum chemistry, quantum field theory, quantum technology, and quantum information sciences. This science deals with the behavior of matter. Now, even human beings are a matter of fact, just matter. And this science, quantum mechanics, deals with the behavior of matter and light on atomic and subatomic scale. It endeavors to describe and account for the properties of molecules and atoms and their constituents. And they are electrons, protons, neutrons, and other esoteric particles such as quarks and gluons. And the quantum theory basically arose around the 20th century when the scientists developed the technology to study the quantity entities known as quantum particles. If I have to quote the Merriam-Webster dictionary, I would say quantum as any of the small increments of parcels into which many forms of energy are subdivided. And don't we say that the creation of the world is a small increment in parcels of the many forms of energy, and God is there in every particle. So if we are taking light, a quantum particle would be a photon. If we are taking matter, the quantum is an electron. The same thing, that God is in every particle of sand. Now scientists studied these minuscule entities, they began to observe very strange things. These observations led to the development in the field of quantum physics, which has broken open everything previously known to science, raising questions about our time. Those questions are usually left to religion and metaphysics to handle. So the connectivity here is established. But before I go any further, let me say that even the most advanced scientists do not fully understand quantum physics. And I don't. And there's no way that we'll be able to adequately summarize its intricacies. With that in mind, we don't know that quantum physics forces us to question really. It makes us ask questions whether anything we know is independently real or constructed of minds. Now, here is again a connectivity. We don't know what consciousness is. We are aware. But you cannot quantify or you cannot personify consciousness. Similarly, you can't personify God. Some people say it's nirakar, without any form. And then we have got the pictures, but not of God. But we have personified God in different ways, at least in Hinduism. So quantum mechanics makes us feel that things may be independently real or just a construction of mind. So is God. The believers, it's real. For the non-believers, it's just a construction of mind. Now, the basic tenets of quantum physics are something that can be both a particle and a wave at the same time. Now, a particle is stagnant, wave is spread out, and lacks a specific location in space and time. So does God. We cannot identify God is in heaven or on the seventh floor or the seventh cloud. Above seventh cloud is the earth as per the Muslim theology is concerned. So according to quantum physics, quanta exist as waves until they are directly observed and measured. And only then do they locate themselves in space and time. And isn't that what all the sages talk about God? Second, basic tenet is the universe is made of probabilities. We can say we think of waves as probability fields in quantum physics. Everything is vast, but not infinite. Now here there's a contradiction. God is infinite. So quantum physics postulates that the entire universe can be thought of as a series of constant changing particles that can be studied through probabilities. So is God. It's probable, might be there, probable, might not be there. There is no scientific proof. The third basic tenet, and here the things get very weird. The theory of quantum entanglement shows that when two particles interact in the right way, mind you, in the right way, influencing one necessarily influences the other, no matter how apart they are. Don't we talk of the God the same way? That if we can understand God in a certain way, each religion says, my way is the best way. So totality at some of these entanglement particles is quantum superposition. And for the rationalists, God is a superposition. Now come to consciousness. At its simplest, you can define it as a sentence or awareness of internal and external persistence. Despite millennia of analysis, definitions, debates by philosophers, scientists, consciousness has remained puzzling and controversial. It's familiar. We know we say we should be aware of inner self, we should be aware of the outside. But it's most mysterious. The only thing is we say that intuition that it exists. But there's no scientific proof. You can't catch hold of it. You can't objectify it. You cannot personify it. So theories that explain this big metaphysical mysteries are so confusing and they are not final. So there's no one theory which can identify or personify God or objectify God. Quantum physics itself says that it's all probabilities. And the probabilities may be there, may not be there. And consciousness, yes, we know what it is. But can we materialize it? No. So then what's the sensible stance? That's agnosticism. If it's there, fine. If it's not there, still better. So there is such a thing as being too picky. You cannot be very picky in either of these three. Whether it's God, whether it's consciousness, whether it's quantum mechanics. You have got to go with one thing, and that is the possibilities and probabilities. There cannot be anything definite. Now, especially when it comes to things like work, love, nourishment. Even the pickiest eater has to eat something. And when it comes to answering the big mysterious, for example, because of parents, teachers, gurus told us we believe in God. Teachers told us quantum physics is this, we believe in that. Consciousness, all the sages and all the psychologists say we should awaken our consciousness, kundalini and so on. We believe that. But we settle on answers not for the proper reasons. We settle on them for the bad reasons. The only reason we give is our scientists say so, our parents said so, our teachers said so, our priest said so. Now we think we need to believe something. We think. But we really don't. We can and should decide that no answers are good enough. And if you say that no answers are good enough, then what's left behind? That connectivity might be there, probability as I said, and possibility. But if you're agnostic, doesn't it solve the problem? You know, take the genetist, Francis Collins. He said there's a put down we should not apply to earnest agnostics who have considered the evidence and don't still feel the answer. As a matter of fact, if you see the evidence of Christianity, for example, just to take an example, I find it unconvincing. And I'm not convinced by any scientific creation stories, either those that depict our cosmos as a bubble in the oceanic multiverse. No, the whole verse we never believed the earth to be round, oval shape. We never believed that there are seven skies till Muhammad said so. So people fault me for being too skeptical. One of the late religious philosophers, Huston Smith, would call me conventionally impaired, convictionally. He says you can't be convinced. I cannot be. Till I have a physical, hard-boiled proof of something. An old friend, Robert Wright, we have often argued about evolutionary psychology and Buddhism. And once he said, don't you believe in anything? Actually, I believe in many things. I believe war is bad. I believe murder is bad. I believe covetousness is bad and they should be abolished. But when it comes to theories about ultimate reality, my credo would be the same as that of Voltaire. Doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainly it's an absurd one. Certainty is an absurd thing. You can't be certain of something which you can't prove. Quantum physics, mechanics talks of what? Probability. God, conjectures. Consciousness, maybe, may not be. So that creates a doubt. And when the ultimate reality is there, doubt protects us from being dogmatic, which can descend into fanaticism, morph into fundamentalism, and that's a premature closing of our account with reality. Now, I would say that the only link between the three would be agnosticism, as it stands between the existence of God, interpretation of quantum mechanics, and the theories of consciousness. The only connecting link is maybe there, may not be there. So why not be agnostic? Now, when considering alleged answer to these riddles, we have got to be very picky. We cannot simply accept. The first main question is, why do we exist? According to the major monotheistic religions, Christianity, Jews, and Islam, and Sikhism, it's an all-powerful, supernatural entity that created us. This deity loves us as a human father loves his children. He wants us to behave in a certain way. If we are good, we are rewarded. If we are bad, he will punish me. Now why I am saying he, why not she? Because most scriptures define and describe God as a male. Now, can't he be hermaphrodite? Both male and female, what the Hindu scriptures call it, Ardhanarishwar, so half man, half woman. My main objection to this explanation of reality is a problem of evil. A casual glance at the human history and the world we see today around us reveals enormous suffering, uncountable injustice, and if God is so loving and omnipotent, why is life so horrific for so many people? A standard response to this question is God gave us free will. If we are bad, that's because of free will. We have to choose between good and the bad. Now, here comes the question of consciousness. And introducing consciousness into physics undermines its claim to objectivity. Let's be very clear. I was reading physicist Steven Weinberg. He slaps down the free will argument in his book Dreams of a Final Theory. And he says that nothing that Nazis killed many of his relations. And he's asked, did millions of Jews have to die because the Nazis could exercise their free will? They were exercising their free will. So were they acting against God? Or was the Holocaust result of the God's will? What happened in partition? More people were killed in the partition riots than they were totally killed in the Second World War. That doesn't seem fair. And what about the kids who get cancer? What have they done? Have they got cancer because of their free will? Are we supposed to think that the cancers are the free will or the children are the free will? On the other side, life is not always hellish. Experience of love, friendship, adventure, heartbreaking beauty, they lend that charm which you can't believe. So could this reality come from the random collision of particles as quantum mechanics says? Life sometimes seems more beautiful than strictly necessary. If the problem of evil believes me from loving God, then the problem of beauty keeps me from being an atheist. So, the best choice is take things as they are. Consciousness, quantum mechanics, God, probabilities, unexplainable, undefinable, indeterminate. Now, at the same time, let me be very clear. Quantum mechanics is a science's most precise, powerful theory of reality. It has predicted countless experiments, spawned countless specific applications. And the trouble is that the physicists and the philosophers disagree over what it means, on what it is about, and how the world works. Most physicists adhere to Copenhagen interpretation of Niels Bohr, and that is kind of anti-interpretation which says physicists should not make sense of quantum mechanics. They should shut up and calculate. Now, that situation is deplorable. I remember reading a book, Philosophy of Physics, Quantum Theory. It was last year, where Tim Maudlin points out several interpretations of quantum mechanics, how the world works. And these include GRW model, pilot wave theory of David Bohm, many word hypothesis. But there's an irony. Maudlin is so scrupulous in pointing out the flaws of the interpretation that he reinforces the sport of agnosticism. All these theories are hopelessly preposterous. They do not meet the point of where belief can be there. So introducing now consciousness into physics undermines its claim to objectivity. We say science should be objective. The moment you bring consciousness in it, because it differs from person to person, it differs from epoch to epoch, from era to era, from place to place. So locational difference, individual difference, time difference. So as far as we know, consciousness arises only in certain organisms that have existed for a brief period on the earth. So how can quantum mechanics, if it's a theory of information, rather than matter energy, apply to the entire cosmos? That started with the Big Bang. So information-based theories of physics seem like a throwback to geocentrism, which assumed that the universe revolves around us. This geocentrism, it demolishes all claims of consciousness and quantum mechanics. So the problem arises. The debate over consciousness is very, very confusing, even more confusing than on quantum mechanics. How does matter make a mind? That's it. A few years of that, a consensus seemed to be emerging. Consciousness was thought to emerge from neural process, such as electrochemical process in brain. And they said, the scientists at that time, like Christoph Koch and Francis Crick, that consciousness is generated by a network of neurons moving in synchronization. Now imagine consciousness might be a property of all matter, not just brains. There are species where the brain may not be there, but the neural function is there and the consciousness is there. As a matter of fact, consciousness is there even in a child who doesn't use his brain. It's something intuitive, something instinctive. And this theory of consciousness, that there is a property of all matter, suffers from the same problem as information-based theories of quantum mechanics. All theorists have conjectured that quantum effects underpin consciousness, but this theory is lacking in evidence. And then, people can't agree on the theory of consciousness. What form should it have? Should it be philosophical? Should it be mathematical model? Should it be a gigantic algorithm? Perhaps based on Bayesian computation? Should it borrow concepts from Buddhism, such as anatta? No, anatta is a doctrine of no self. This is a very interesting doctrine which no other religion, every religion talks of self and God. But Buddhist religion is the only religion in the world which talks of anatta. There's no self. So there's no consensus either in the God or in quantum mechanics or in consciousness, and that's a connectivity. I'm a skeptic, as I said, definitely. I doubt we will ever know whether God exists. I doubt that we will ever be able to define in absolute terms quantum mechanics or how matters make mind and consciousness. These are three puzzles, and I would say they are three parts of one triangle. Each has a connectivity, but each straight line of this triangle, there are three straight lines, are unable to define what life is. Taken together, some meaning might emerge. But these three puzzles are different aspects of one thing, and that is a single impenetrable mystery of the heart of things. All three things, whether it's God, whether it's quantum mechanics, whether it's consciousness, aim at one thing: to understand and to clarify the impenetrable mystery of the heart of things. So, connectivity as such is agnosticism, and that's the greatest player. You can keep looking for the reason. I'm not saying stop it, but not be definite, being that the only way is to hope for the revelation which might be just across the horizon. But one thing is sure, these three are in fact a guide to understand the intricacies of human mind, the intricacies of creation, and as well as intricacies of the real life. The connectivity may not be in physical terms, but in spatial terms and spiritual terms, these three are interconnected and a manifestation of the same thought to identify, define, formulate, personify things, not leave them in nebulous darkness.